Hello, my name is Daryl Robert Schoon, and I'm going to, on this program, explain the context of the economic collapse. I've done so in previous programs every once in a while, but this time I'm going to go deeper into the context of the changes that are in motion in this world today. What we are going through is no small change. It was hoped that when the economy contracted and slowed down, when we had a recession, it was hoped by many that the slowdown was one of the cyclic moves that always happens when credit and debt form the basis of an economy. The business cycle, a phenomenon that came into being when the British created their banking system in 1694 in England. Today, we think of the business cycle as normal as the tides, as the normal of the passage of night after day, as normal as the passage of year upon year. Let me assure you, before 1694, the business cycle was not only not normal, it was unheard of. It was the hand of man interfering in the markets. How that came to be and its consequences are at the root of what is happening today. But it coincides with a much bigger shift, which I hopefully will get to before the end of this program. We have come to characterize these major structural shifts with the word paradigm. The word paradigm is a word for a structure that is a way of life that is changing or that has been there. And our economy is such a paradigm. It didn't always exist. Before 1694, it didn't exist at all on this planet. It was truly new. And shortly, it probably won't exist here at all. The core of the banker system in the United States is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was put here by the bankers in 1913. This year is its 100th anniversary. God willing, it is the last year of its existence. I say that with no certainty. I only say that with hope. How this paradigm came into being is very interesting. But first, let us discuss the word paradigm itself and where it came from. In 1962, Thomas Kuhn wrote a little pamphlet almost called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And this is what he said. This was the pamphlet, the book, the paper that put the word paradigm into general usage. And what Kuhn wrote was this: paradigm changes result from the invention of new theories brought about by the failure of existing theory to solve the problems defined by that theory. This failure is acknowledged as a crisis by the scientific community. When science could not explain the world introduced by Copernicus' model of the motions of heavenly body, a crisis happened. For those who had believed that the pre-Copernican model of the universe was a reflection of God itself, felt that the introduction of a new paradigm was an insult to God. That if the Copernican model of the world, of the universe, was true, then the pre-Copernican model wasn't true. And if the existence of God was somehow tied into the pre-Copernican model, then Copernicus, Galileo, everybody who saw the new world was a threat. 300, 400 years after, I think, they were run out of the church, the Catholic Church issued an apology. Paradigm shifts happen, and when they do, the existing paradigm is swept away, and so shall this paradigm be swept away also. I want to discuss how this paradigm came into being. You know, here in the United States, there's this little fable that you hear in school, and it's a story of how some enterprising Dutch or English merchants in the New World had swindled the Indians out of Manhattan. Now a very valuable piece of real estate. And as the story goes, they traded the Indians some trinkets, glass beads, for the island of Manhattan. Now, this story is told by those who allegedly swindled it from the Indians. There's another story that's also told, though, that the traders bought the land, bought Manhattan, not from the Indians who lived on the island, but from another tribe of Indians who didn't live there. All right? So you had these people, it's sort of like buying the World Trade Center from somebody who owned the Empire State Building and not the World Trade Center, and considering yourself quite the traitor for having done so. Well, the truth of the matter is, no Indians believed in property rights. No Indian believed that the earth could be divided and sold in perpetuity. They didn't believe in that reality. That was a purely Western concept. But nonetheless, the belief that they had bought it formed the basis of the intrusion of the Western culture into the pristine lands of America that the American Indian populations lived on. And if that was a fable told by Westerners about how they came into possession of this great land, the paradigm of banking came about by a just as carnal trade. The banker's paper banknotes passing off his money happened in 1694. The context was this. For hundreds of years, kingdoms in the West had been at each other's throat. King fought king, cousin fought cousin, brothers fought sister, each trying to get more land. The lust for power. These problems, these power grabs, were very expensive. And so, as the story goes, a Scotsman, William Paterson, was granted a meeting with King William of England. And as the story goes, William Paterson made a proposal to the King of England. And he said this: we meaning me and my boys, all right, they were what we call bankers now. The word banker didn't even exist as we know it. Banking establishments, buildings didn't exist. The word bank is derived from the Jewish word for bench, on which the Jewish moneylenders would ply their trade. But these were not Jews. These were not the sons of Israel that approached the King of England. These were Scotsmen. All right? And they said this through William Paterson, as the fable goes: we will advance you the money to pay off your war debts. And not only will we do that, we will underwrite any loans you need in the future. Of course, on your ability to pay it back. Well, the king knew a deal when he saw one. Because if he couldn't pay it back, he could just string those bankers up by the neck. drive them out of business, as they had done since the Middle Ages in Europe. Banking, especially that practiced by the Jews, was a very dangerous business. But these were not the Jews, they were the Scotsmen. And King William, he loved the deal. What? Pay off my massive war debts and allow me to go to war on credit? He could see a deal. He couldn't see a trap. He cut a deal with William Paterson, and he granted the Bank of England a charter. The world's first modern central bank. There was an earlier central bank in Sweden, but not quite the same as the Bank of England. And the Bank of England was formed when the Bank of England advanced King William the princely sum of £1,200,000, which was a lot of, quote, money at that time, especially when measured in terms of gold and silver, which was the coin of the realm. But the truth is this. Like the glass beads used by the Dutch traders in purchasing the island of Manhattan approximately 40 to 50 years before from the unknowing indigenous tribe they allegedly bought the island from, according to the fable and the myth. William Paterson did not give the King of England £1,200,000 worth of gold and silver. They advanced the king £1,200,000 banknotes that said they were worth £1,200,000 in the aggregate. They gave this to the King of England. Paper, coupons. Now, because he was the King of England could take these paper coupons and spend them like real money, especially when they made it law that these new banknotes issued by the Bank of England could be passed as real money. Let me assure you, in aggregate, the glass beads, and I heard they were Venetian glass beads, and if you've been to Venice, you know these beads are highly prized and had a lot of value. The beads that the Dutch traders used to purchase Manhattan were probably worth more than the pieces of paper William Paterson and his band of bankers bought the right to issue debt-based money in the Kingdom of England. For the first time in the history of humanity, money was a form of debt. The previous issuance of paper money happened in China in 10,022. All such coupons issued over the next 500 years by 5 successive Chinese dynasties that all collapsed by the excessive issuance of paper money were, in some time or another, supposedly backed by gold or silver or copper or something of positive value. The beauty to the bankers in England was that they got the King of England to put his imprimatur, the power of the state, behind the bankers' debt-based paper banknotes. This was so successful. It spread over the world like a virus. Bad money drives out good. That was Gresham's law. And it came out hundreds of years before the British put out their paper banknotes. But it is just as true. Bad money drives out good. In the recent history of the United States, when I was a kid, dimes were made of silver, and so were quarters. No more. Dollars were coined in silver previously. No more. Bad money drives out good. These are not just little homilies that you read in history books. These are the basis of the truths that have eroded the world that you live in. It is falling away. A paradigm shift is in progress. The paradigm introduced by William Patterson of debt-based money has reached such proportions, has reached such levels of debt, that the issuers of credit can no longer issue enough credit to contain the amount of debt previously issued and constantly compounding. The paradigm is collapsing, and nothing you can do can save it. QE1 didn't save it, QE2 didn't save it, and QE3 won't save it. But this paradigm of debt is also ending and collapsing as another paradigm is moving in. You know, these are extraordinarily exciting times. And for those of you attached to the world of credit and debt that ushered in this paradigm shift, you have nothing but heartache in front of you. Because it coincides with an even deeper paradigm shift. An even more fundamental paradigm than credit and debt-based money. This paradigm that it coincides with, the collapse of this paradigm, is the collapse of the gender inequality between men and women. The debt-based paradigm of money came out of the West. That was its iteration on the previous paradigm of paper money that came out of the East. Paper money arose in China in 1022 as a substitution of real savings-based money. It was outlawed in China in 1622, reappeared in the West in 1694 in England, not as a form of a coupon allegedly substituting for positive value, but as a coupon of debt substituting for money. The paradigm that I'm speaking of gender inequality, has been with us since recorded history. And this is what we are seeing today. The more fundamental a paradigm, the deeper that it's been embedded, the longer the shift takes to take place, and the greater the dislocation. In this recent election in the United States, I wonder what the rest of the world thinks about us. When you had Republicans standing up defending rape in certain circumstances. All right? Legitimate rape was raised. This election had something to do with economics, but it really had to do with the collapse of the existing paradigm of gender inequality. This paradigm not only existed in the West, but it truly existed everywhere on the globe. except perhaps in the island communities, in the Polynesian communities of the South Pacific. The advantage of the male over the female was so embedded in the world's cultures that horrific events have been done since the beginning of our recorded history. The rape of this medical student, 23 years old, taking a jitney home in India that resulted in her brutal death, lit a fire in India. This is the country that men could basically do whatever with women that they wanted. The thinly veiled attacks on Planned Parenthood have nothing to do with the right of life, though that's what they call themselves. It's an attack on women. If the right to lifers cared about life, as they purport to do, they would oppose the death penalty. They would oppose the wars. They would oppose America's killing machines. But they don't. It's all directed at the rights and safety of women. This paradigm shift has been in motion for probably 200 years. It's reaching a fevered pitch, and it is going to end in the equality of men and women on this planet for the first time. The imbalance between yin and yang is an ancient imbalance. The words yin and yang denoted the two polarities, denoted the male and female, came first in China, a country until recently where drowning baby girls was accepted as being, hey, normal. Normal. Oh, did you hear that the Wongs had a baby girl? Really? Did they drown it? Yes. Well, China doesn't do that anymore. And why did they stop? Because the cultural roots that gave rise to these inequities were absolutely destroyed by their encounter with the West, by the invasion of Japan, decimating the country, and the rise of communism, of Mao Zedong, who said, the heavens, 50% of the heavens are held up by women. Now, what happened to China in the last 200 years was brutal. And especially in the early part of this century, bloodshed was spilled in the lives of millions. Tens of millions of people died in this social cataclysm. But today, women have culturally in China an opportunity that women on the rest of the planet don't have. The China of today, they have more self-made women billionaires than any planet on any country on the face of the earth. And the cost was massive. What I want to say to you, who are attached to the old paradigms, whether it has to do with gender, economics, religious beliefs, is this: the new paradigm is coming into place. Its arrival is imminent. The cost is up to you. The greater the resistance, the greater the cost. The new paradigm will have its day. Whether you are victim or victor depends on you.